Wow, what a rookie season for Bo Nix. It wasn't long ago he wasn't thought of as a great college quarterback, let alone an NFL prospect, but transferred from Auburn to Oregon, set a bunch of records there, ended up being drafted top 12, and then having a great rookie season for the Denver Broncos. And Dillon Gabriel's kind of trying to take that same path. Gabriel was a transfer to Oregon for his final season, and you see the college career comparison and Gabriel's stats compared to Bo Nix. Now, this wasn't his final season at Oregon, but his entire college career. But Gabriel had a somewhat similar season that Bo Nix had in his senior season at Oregon. This is Mike Renner. He's going to talk about some of these quote-unquote journeyman quarterbacks who might not be taken, in the top 10 or day one, but that you like at the next level. Does Dillon Gabriel's path remind you of Bo Nix?
A little, in terms of, I think once he got to Oregon, that's when he really proved himself in my eyes as a passer, because that Oregon offense, a lot of the concepts are NFL concepts. Yeah, they run a ton of screens, but they also do a lot of downfield passing concepts that will translate to the league. Whereas when he was at Oklahoma, when he was at UCF, Dillon Gabriel, it was pretty gimmicky. It was a lot of college-y stuff. The comp more that I see him as is someone like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, his freshman year at Iowa State, was a high-level college football player already. Dillon Gabriel, his freshman year at UCF, was a high-level college football player already. He averaged 9.2 yards per attempt as a true freshman. Obviously, at his size, was never going to be heralded as a top prospect. 5'10 and a half, just over 200 pounds. But he's got a good arm. Maybe he doesn't have the high-end traits that Bo Nix does, and that's why he won't go where Bo Nix did. But he's got a plus arm. He is mobile, and he played a heck of a football season this past year. I'd put his tape against Ohio State the first time around when they actually had a chance against that pass rush. I'd put that against anyone's best game this season. The guy has high-end NFL traits, and he's played more football now, dating back to high school where he was a true freshman starter, now through college where his 63 starts are more than anyone else in college football history, than any other prospect entering the league. And we've seen in recent years how playing football helps you play right away at the next level.
He's old, but he's not older than Tyler Shuck, who turns 26 in September. For reference, that's the same age as Jalen Hurts right now. Why aren't you worried about his age, and what impressed you about him at the Combine last week?
Because I think the quarterback position specifically, now if this was a running back, we would be worried about his age because you only got a few years left. But quarterback, these guys play until they're mid to upper 30s. So you got a decade plus once he gets to the NFL of playing, and you just want to see mastery. You just want to see a guy who got to college football, learned the game inside and out, and dominated. And I think he did that on tape this past year. Now, he didn't have great receivers in terms of their ball skills, a ton of drops, a ton of blown opportunities on tape, a very bad offensive line that he played behind. But the thing I love is that he never succumbed to the pressure. He never had games where he really just went in the tank because the protection wasn't good up front, because his receivers weren't getting open. He always fought to keep his head above water. And at the Combine, you saw the guy's arm talent. He's got a big arm. He's got good size. He ran a 4.63. I think he really helped himself there. And the stat I love going back to, there were two quarterbacks in last year's class who had a pressure to sack conversion ratio less than 10%. That means 1 in 10 of their times they were pressured, it led to sacks. You want guys who are avoiding sacks at all costs. Tyler Shuck's the only quarterback in this class with a sub 10% pressure to sack ratio. That's a good thing when projecting to the next level.
And what round do you see him going in?
I think he's a mid-rounder. I think at this point he's probably a late second, early third type of guy.
All right, let's go to a guy who might be a day 3 sort of guy, and that might surprise you if you went back 3-4 years into the past. And that's Quinn Ewers, who was the #1 recruit in college football, went to Ohio State, then Texas. And really, if you look at his career, I don't think you can argue that he was a disappointment in college. I mean, he led Texas to back-to-back CFPs. So why don't scouts think that what he did in college, it can translate into the NFL?
Well, one, he is absurdly talented. There's no denying that. The guy has great arm talent. He can sling it from any sort of angle he wants to. But you just didn't see development year on year from him that gets you excited. When you're a sophomore doing what he did at Texas, it's like, oh, I'm intrigued. When you're still making some of the same mistakes as a senior, when you're still doing those same things, and when you factor in the fact that he hasn't gained a pound of muscle from what I've seen on tape. The guy's still skinny as can be. I think he's getting hurt every single year, missing games each of the past 3 seasons. And then you look at what he was working with at the receiver position. He had 2 years ago, he had Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. One ran a 4.21, the other ran a 4.35. This year, he had Matthew Golden and Gosh, I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but one ran a 4.29, the other ran a 4.39. He had elite, Isaiah Bond, he had elite speed at the receiver position, and yet never was a elite deep ball thrower. I think that's the biggest worry, is you just never saw development in the areas he needed to develop. So the former #1 overall recruit, yeah, he didn't flop, but he definitely didn't live up to that hype.
Day 3?
I think he's day 3 guy, yeah.
Okay, boy, that's somewhat surprising for a guy that was the #1 overall recruit and really lived up to expectations in college. Mike Renner with us here on CBS Sports HQ. First Pick podcast with Ryan Wilson, and Mike, you've been in on that as well. What's coming up on the latest episode of this?
We went through combine winners and losers this past week. Matthew Golden from Texas, guy just mentioned, he was one of those names. So it's a good episode. Go check it out.
Golden with the fastest time in the 40 this year at the combine. Thank you, Mike.